My name is Andrew Fairclough. I'm a freelance illustrator and designer, and I've been selling digital products on Creative Market for about 3 or 4 years now. My work's quite known for texture and that kind of thing, so that all kind of comes or work clean and then destroyed at the end. I predominantly work in Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. I also work in Procreate a little bit for sketching on an iPad. Because I've been doing this for long enough and I'm old, I can't hunch over a tiny little iPad for too long, so that's why I have this thing and like a sit-stand desk. Because I work with a lot of texture, I like to get in close and I like to work big, and so I can focus on small details, which I find is pretty hard to do on a much smaller screen. That's just me. Like, the iPad is a beautiful thing to draw on as well, and Procreate's a fantastic app, so I kind of like doing a bit of both. I taught some online courses, making analog textures, scanning them, and then converting them for use in Photoshop and Illustrator. A lot of students started to ask, do you sell any of your textures or brushes or anything like that? And I was like, maybe I should do that. And then I thought, well, I could at the very least just kind of put that stuff on Creative Market. And then sort of once I thought about it, I was like, well, one product's not enough. I want to kind of come up with a whole suite of products. So I went through my archive of just like shortcuts and texture tools that I'd made over the years and started like distilling them down into a bunch of like usable and sellable products. Predominantly I'm selling products that are very texture focused and mostly in brush form, and then just like a lot of effects kits that allow people to apply different mid-century or photocopy print effects that took me years and years and years through like trial and error to figure out, but like you can now kind of achieve these looks that through your own experimentation you might never come to. I guess as a rule, and one of the big driving forces behind a lot of my products is customization, and that they kind of have to work for professional designers and illustrators at a very high level. So I try to make stuff that like a novice can use, but there's a minimum amount of experience using Photoshop or Illustrator that you kind of need to use them. I kind of want to make products that the product isn't the end result, it's just a tool to get you to sort of add to the creativity of your own work. Yeah, it's definitely, makers themselves. It's a lot of designers and illustrators who, have screen printed printmaking aesthetic. Kind of found that like a lot of our customers are, they're working on clients in streetwear, action sports, music, film, a lot of comic makers and indie comic makers, indie game makers. I mean, it's been really cool to make products that they're as useful to a small online comic maker as much as they are for like Marvel or Disney or DC. For me, Creative Market's a little bit of an experiment in the sense of the cream rising to the top. If the product's good enough, people will find it. Having my products found by, the right users, I think like the idea of like infinite growth and being like all things to all people is just kind of silly. I want to make the best products I can make for a specific type of aesthetic, and then connect with like-minded creatives who also want to integrate some of those aesthetics into their work in order to grow their own creative practice. So I think Creative Market's kind of perfect for that. It's a perfect point of entry for somebody starting out making their own templates or brushes or whatever, because they don't need to go through that time and expense of building their own platform and generating, an independent following. Having that additional income that can kind of stabilize your income. And when I first started out, it was like, I can pay like 1 week of my rent every month. And that was just like, at the end of the month, it was like, oh my God, this is so great to not have to pay that like 1 week studio rent. So, and then like as the business has grown, you know, that just compounds exponentially. At one point 2 years ago, it kind of gave me the flexibility to take a couple of months off to just focus on a solo art show. Like, I could never have done that without having a store on Creative Market. So you can't really put a dollar figure on that.